This is the most critical strategic activity in the entire sales process. It is the intellectual work that happens before the fieldwork ever begins. The failure to prospect and target correctly is the primary reason for wasted effort, low ROI, and team burnout. The core principle is simple but profound. It is not about seeing every doctor, it is about seeing the right doctors, for the right reasons. This stage is a direct application of the foundational marketing principle of STP: segmentation, targeting, and positioning. This section focuses on the first two, segmentation and targeting. The concept here is that prospecting means identifying all potential prescribers of your product within a given territory. It is the process of creating the master list, or the universe, from which you will later select your high-value targets. This is an act of intelligence gathering, not of selling. The reality in India. Territories are often dense with a vast number of clinics, nursing homes, and hospitals. A company-provided doctor list is often just a starting point and can quickly become outdated. An elite MR is also an elite intelligence gatherer. Internal data. The company's existing customer list is the baseline. Channel partners, the goldmine. The local chemists and stockists are the most valuable source of real-time prospecting data. A strategic conversation can reveal which new doctors have set up clinics in this area, which GPs are referring the most cardiac patients to Dr. Sharma. I see a lot of competitor X's prescriptions, which doctors are writing it. Direct observation. Systematically canvassing the territory to identify new clinic signboards, hospital wings, or medical centers. Referral network analysis. Speaking with established doctors, where appropriate, and their staff to understand the local referral patterns. Management imperative. The manager must train their team to be perpetual prospectors. They must move them beyond a passive reliance on the company list to an active entrepreneurial approach of owning the intelligence network in their territory. The manager should review the prospecting process, asking, what new potential prescribers have you identified this month and from what source? When prospecting creates the universe, targeting is about choosing the specific stars you'll navigate by. This means applying a strategic filter to your master list so you can focus on the healthcare professionals who offer the most potential value. By doing this, you avoid the common mistake of treating all doctors the same, which can waste your most precious resource: time. Here's a core principle to keep in mind: the Pareto principle, or the 80-20th rule. In sales management, this means that in any given territory, about 80% of prescription business comes from just 20% of the doctors. This is an economic reality that shapes how you should approach your territory. So the main job for a manager and their team is to accurately identify and focus on that vital 20%. What sets top performers apart is their relentless discipline in sticking to this principle. Let's talk about the targeting matrix. A manager should coach their team to look beyond just volume. A doctor's value isn't one-dimensional. It's a mix of their current prescribing habits and their future potential. In India, data-driven targeting is changing the game. Prescription audit data, like what you get from AIOCD AWACS, gives managers real objective evidence of a doctor's prescribing habits. This kind of information can truly transform your approach. With access to this data, targeting is no longer a guessing game. It becomes a genuinely data-driven strategy that helps you make smarter decisions. Let me give you an example. A rep might think Dr. Gupta is a key customer because he's friendly and always available. But when you look at the prescription data, you might find that Dr. Gupta actually prescribes very little of your molecule. This is why it's so important to rely on real data, not just personal impressions. On the other hand, Dr. Rao might be a no-see doctor who's hard to meet, but the data shows she's one of the top prescribers of a competitor's drug in the entire territory. That's where the real business opportunity lies. The numbers help you see past the obvious and find hidden potential. For managers, the most important strategic role in the field is to review and approve the team's targeting plan. Challenge your reps' assumptions and ask them to justify their choices with data and clear reasoning. Some key coaching questions to ask are: show me your list of stars and hidden gems. What's your plan to maximize their potential? Why are you spending so much time with this time waster? What's the strategic return on that investment? How are you using the latest prescription data to refine your target list? These questions help keep the team focused and accountable. By making this a regular practice, you'll see your team's targeting skills improve over time. When you instill this discipline, you help your team move from simply running a route to managing a strategic portfolio of high-value assets. The pre-approach phase is all about thoughtful, strategic preparation before every important client interaction. Think of it as the careful groundwork that turns a sales call from a shot in the dark into a well-planned, purposeful meeting. Helmuth von Moltke, the Prussian field marshal, once said, "No plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force." While that's true, he also believed that careful planning is what gives you the flexibility to succeed when that first contact happens. For a sales manager, building a team culture where pre-call planning is second nature, something everyone just does, is the most direct way to boost performance. This approach shifts the whole team's mindset. Instead of reacting to situations, they start thinking ahead and acting strategically. The idea here is to turn raw data into insights you can actually use. It's not just about knowing a doctor's name, it's about truly understanding who they are and what matters to them. The goal is to build a well-rounded profile that helps you form a working theory about what motivates an HCP, what their priorities are, and how they practice. This lines up with evidence-based practice, making decisions by combining the best available evidence with your own expertise about your customer. Let's talk about the HCP Intelligence Profile. This is a living analytical tool. Managers should encourage their teams to keep concise, up-to-date profiles for every high-value HCP, treating them as strategic assets that are always being refined. When it comes to therapeutic focus, ask yourself, what is this doctor's exact clinical specialty? For example, is the cardiologist focused on interventional procedures, or do they specialize in heart failure management? This helps you know which of your product's data will be most relevant. Now, let's look at prescribing behavior. What does the data say about their prescribing patterns in your therapeutic area? Here, objective third-party data like AIOCD AWACS becomes essential. It gives you real evidence of their current loyalties and future potential. Here's something to keep in mind. Managers should teach their teams to use this data as a diagnostic tool. For instance, if the numbers show Dr. Joshi only prescribes competitor X's statin, don't just assume Dr. Joshi doesn't like our brand. A better way to look at it is this. Dr. Joshi probably has a strong belief in competitor X's lipid-lowering power, built up over years. So, trying to win on efficacy alone may not work. Instead, focus on what sets your drug apart, like proven pleiotropic benefits or a better safety profile for patients with kidney issues. That's where you can start building new trust. Some doctors are clinical purists. They're driven by the latest clinical data, international guidelines, and what key opinion leaders have to say. Others are practice pragmatists. They focus on patient volume, affordability, and treatments that are easy to use and have few side effects, so they don't have to deal with as many follow-up visits. And then there are the KOL influencers, academic leaders who are often early adopters and whose choices shape the local medical community. In India, the best MRs go beyond formal data. They build a network of sources, local chemists, clinic staff, even other reps, who can share valuable insights about a doctor's personality, daily challenges, and professional interests. This ground-level intelligence adds real context to the numbers. For managers, the real job is to take pre-call conversations beyond just reviewing data. It's about having a strategic, hypothesis-driven discussion. For example, before meeting Dr. Mehta, you might say, "The data shows he's a pragmatist who sees 80 patients a day and prefers older medicines. Maybe he thinks new drugs are too expensive or complicated for his patients." So how does your call plan address that concern? This stage is where all the intelligence and hypotheses you've gathered come together to form a structured yet flexible plan for your conversation. One of the most effective ways to do this is by adapting Neil Rackham's SPIN methodology, which highlights just how important the right questions are in a sales call. Let's start with the commitment objective, or what we call the call continuum. Remember, a sales call is just one step in a longer journey. The goal isn't always to get a prescription right away. Instead, managers should help their teams define realistic, progressive commitments. For example, instead of just aiming to detail Dr. Verma, which is simply an activity, focus on what you want to achieve in that interaction. Think of objectives as a continuum. At the minimum, you might want Dr. Verma to agree to review a one-page summary of your landmark trial. A realistic, smart objective could be getting her to identify a specific patient profile where she'd be willing to try your product this week. And if you're aiming high, maybe she'll agree to a follow-up peer-to-peer discussion with your company's medical science liaison. Now, let's talk about the opening. In India, an MR might only get 30 to 90 seconds with a doctor, so those first moments are everything. Your opening needs to connect immediately with what matters to the HCP.
Good morning, doctor. I've been looking at the latest local data on antibiotic resistance patterns, which I know is a challenge you face every day. I have an insight about how our molecule performs against resistant E. coli that I think could be really relevant for your UTI patients. Would you have 60 seconds for me to share it? Let's start with S for situation. This is where you ask about the current context. For example, doctor, typically for your post-MI patients, what is your go-to antiplatelet therapy? Next is P for problem. Here you want to uncover any dissatisfaction. You might ask, in your experience with that therapy, have you ever had concerns about the risk of GI bleeds in your elderly patients? Then comes I for implication. This is the most powerful question because it helps the doctor see the seriousness of the problem. For instance, what are the potential consequences of a GI bleed for an elderly patient who is already on multiple medications? And finally, N for need payoff. This is where you guide the conversation toward your solution. You could ask, so if there were a therapy that provided the necessary antiplatelet effect, but with a much lower risk of GI complications, would that be valuable for your practice?
Objections aren't roadblocks, they're just requests for more information. Managers should train their teams to use a structured, non-confrontational approach. Acknowledge, clarify, respond, and confirm.
Here's how it works. Acknowledge. I understand your concern about the cost. Clarify. Just to be sure, is your main concern the upfront cost for the patient or the overall value to the hospital? Respond. Give a concise, evidence-based answer. And finally, confirm. Does this data help address your concern about the value?
Here's a key management point. Managers need to make this level of planning a habit. The pre-call strategic huddle is a great tool for this. A quick, focused 2-minute drill before every important call. Ask questions like, what's our realistic commitment objective for this interaction? What's the single most important implication question you plan to ask? And what's the main objection we expect? And what's our ACRC plan? When managers embed this discipline, their teams move beyond just presenting information. They become skilled architects of clinical dialogue, able to create real value in every call. This is the pivotal stage where all preceding research and planning are put to the test. The detail, as it is known in the pharmaceutical industry, is the most misunderstood and poorly executed element of the sales process. It is not a presentation. It is a structured, evidence-based, clinical dialogue. It is not a monologue. It is a tightly choreographed Socratic exchange. For the manager, mastering the ability to coach this single activity is the highest leverage point for elevating team performance. A well-executed detail creates value, changes behavior, and builds trust. A poorly executed one consumes time, damages credibility, and wastes resources. A note on detail orientation in the Indian context. There exists a pervasive and fundamentally flawed stereotype that the Indian professional approach can be superficial, prioritizing relationships over the specifics. This is a profound misreading of the cultural and intellectual landscape. The Indian educational system, renowned for its rigor in science, medicine, and engineering, forges a mind that is inherently analytical and detail-oriented. The challenge, and the immense opportunity, is not a lack of detail orientation, but a historical sales culture that did not always demand its full expression. The true genius of the modern Indian MR lies in their ability to bridge the innate cultural strength of relationship building with this deep-seated analytical capability. The representative who masters the art of the detail, who respects a physician's intellect by presenting nuanced clinical evidence with precision, is not just being a good salesperson. They are connecting on a professional and intellectual level that builds the most resilient and respectful partnerships. The one who cracks the code of the detail is already a leap ahead of the competition. Defining the detail, a strategic framework, generic sales presentation, a one-way, product-focused communication designed to inform a customer about features and benefits. The primary tool is persuasion. The goal is to push information. Pharmaceutical detailing, a two-way consultative, evidence-based dialogue designed to align a product's scientifically proven clinical outcomes with the specific patient needs within a physician's practice. The primary tool is clinical reasoning. The goal is to co-create a solution to a clinical problem.
Good afternoon, doctor. I am here from ABC Pharma. I am here to talk about our brand, Hypertrol. It is a very good brand from a top company. It contains telmisartan 40 milligrams and gives excellent BP control. I request you to please try it on your next patient. Okay, thank you. I will keep it in mind. Please leave your sample. Good afternoon, doctor. I know you manage a significant number of elderly hypertensive patients and that ensuring 24-hour BP control without nocturnal hypertension is a critical concern. May I have 60 seconds to show you the specific ambulatory BP monitoring data from the PRISMA eye study that addresses this exact challenge with telmisartan? Okay, quickly. As you can see here, the data shows a smooth and sustained 24-hour BP reduction. But more importantly, a significantly lower incidence of nighttime BP dips below 110 systolic compared to the older molecule you are currently using. For your elderly patients, this could mean a lower risk of nocturnal dizziness or falls. Doctor, based on this safety profile, could you perhaps identify just one or two of your elderly hypertensive patients this week for whom this smoother control might be a priority?
Phase 1. The opening. Earning the right to continue. Objective: to seize the physician's attention in the first 15 seconds by establishing immediate relevance and value. Execution: this is the direct output of the pre-call plan. It must be a concise, powerful statement that links your visit to a known priority or challenge of the doctor. It is the hook that stops them from mentally tuning out. Phase 2. The dialogue. Diagnosis before prescription. Objective: to engage the doctor in a Socratic dialogue, guiding them to articulate a clinical need that your product can solve. This is the application of the spin selling framework in real time. Execution: this phase is dominated by intelligent questions, not declarative statements. The goal is to have the doctor arrive at their own conclusion about the limitations of their current therapy. It shifts the dynamic from being sold to being consulted with. Phase 3. The evidence, presenting the proof. Objective: to present a specific, targeted piece of clinical evidence that directly addresses the need uncovered in the dialogue phase. Execution: this is the visual and data-driven core of the detail. It is not about flipping through an entire visual aid. It is about presenting a single, powerful chart, graph, or summary table. The MR must have absolute mastery of this data and be able to explain it simply. Insight: the human brain processes visual information 60,000 times faster than text. A well-chosen graph is infinitely more powerful than a verbal claim. Phase 4. The bridge. Connecting evidence to practice. Objective: to translate the abstract clinical data into a concrete, tangible benefit for the doctor's specific patients. This is the crucial "so what" step. Execution: this involves a simple but powerful bridging statement. For example, "So doctor, What this data means for your patients is a greater chance of reaching their target BP with a single pill, potentially improving their adherence and long-term outcomes. This final connection is what moves the conversation from academic interest to clinical action. Management imperative, coaching the detailing triptych. A manager's most valuable in-field activity is to observe and coach the detail. A powerful coaching framework is the detailing triptych, focusing on 3 distinct areas for feedback. Structure. Did the call have a logical flow? Was there a clear opening, a dialogue, a presentation of evidence, and a bridge to practice? Or was it a disorganized data dump? Substance. Was the clinical evidence presented accurate, relevant, and compelling? Did the representative demonstrate deep knowledge and handle the doctor's questions with confidence? Style. Was the delivery professional and engaging? Did the representative adapt their style to the doctor's personality? Did they listen more than they talked? Was their nonverbal communication, posture, eye contact, confident and respectful? By providing specific, actionable feedback within this framework, a manager can systematically deconstruct and improve their team's most critical sales activity, transforming them from presenters into true strategic detailers.